The last story, people, because if you hear a story that sounds too absurd to be true, it might be slightly absurd. And there might be more to it than what you think. Okay. The headline was going around, teacher jailed for mispronouns. The reality is not much better, but we need to make sure that we know the reality and we don't get caught retweeting inaccurate headlines. Irish teacher imprisoned for continuing to teach after refusing to use gender-neutral pronouns. Now, a distinction without a difference, that argument can be made. If they don't get you on the charges, they get you on the process. That is, who was it? It's bringing a slew. Oh, it's Michael Flynn. Bringing a slew of charges, get him on lying to investigators. An Irish teacher was put in prison after he refused to use gender-neutral pronouns, telling the judge he would continue going to school to teach despite a court order barring him from the premises. Okay, this is not to nitpick. This is just to be accurate. It sounds like he went to jail for defying a court order telling him not to go to a premises, not to go to a school. It might not be better. It might not be any better in the minds of some. By the sounds of it, he did not go to jail for refusing to use gender-neutral pronouns. He might have been wrongfully dismissed. There might have been a court order, by the sounds of it there was, enjoining him not to attend the school, not to go on the premises, and he did nonetheless, in which case he's not being jailed for refusing to use gender-neutral pronouns. He's being jailed for violating a court order, being jailed for contempt, which can carry with it the risk of imprisonment. Enoch Burke was temporarily suspended on full pay from the Wilson Hospital School after refusing a request from the principal to address transgender students by they instead of he, according to the Irish outlet. Well, at least he wasn't being asked to use a. So this is if they is gender neutral here. I'm sorry, let me see this. They did refer to this as gender neutral, right? Yeah. If they is gender neutral, why was that other individual insisting that Time magazine use a and air instead of they and their? If it's gender neutral, what is a and air? That I don't understand. I don't understand it, and it's a serious question. The evangelical Christian continued to show up to work every day despite the suspension, leading the boarding school to get an interlocutory injunction restraining him from coming to the building. It's not going to make it any different for a lot of people out there. Interlocutory injunction, basic legal 101, but the terms will vary by jurisdiction, because I think in the States you have TROs, which are temporary restraining orders, and not provisional injunctions. But you have injunctions, interim court orders. The duration of the scope or the temporal duration of the injunction will depend on what stage of the proceeding it's at. Emergency injunctions, temporary restraining orders, like emergency, until we can get to court to have a preliminary hearing. Interlocutory injunctions, typically until you can get to a hearing on the merits. And so they fire him, or they didn't fire him. They put him on paid leave because of a gender neutral pronoun verbal disagreement. He continues showing up to work despite being put on temporary leave, asked not to come in. They get a court order that says, don't come. There's now a lawful order of the court, presumably, enjoining him, meaning prohibiting him from coming on the premises. Not much different in procedure than a TRO telling a spouse they can't approach their other spouse pending a domestic violence dispute. That might be criminal. There's a civil equivalent. But someone says, stop harassing, stop emailing, stop calling. And if the person continues doing it, they're not being jailed because they emailed someone. They're being jailed because they violated knowingly a court order enjoining them not to do it. Technical distinction, but it's material because it is the distinction. When Burke persisted in showing up to work, the school's board of management filed a further application for contempt of court. On Friday, Justice Miriam O'Regan ordered Burke to be arrested and brought into court. In court, Burke continued to insist on showing up to the school teach. Oh, sorry, read properly. In court, Burke continued to insist on showing up to school teach. Okay, no, I read that right. Okay, saying, I love my school. I am here today because I would not call a boy a girl. Staying away the school. Dude, what's going on? Am I reading this? This is staying away the school. writes this? Okay, I thought I'm having my like reading comprehension issues. This is drafting comprehension issues. Staying away from the school is not something I will do. It is a violation of my conscience, Burke added. The teacher claimed that his suspension was invalid. The teacher claimed his suspension was invalid and that he would have had to, quote, commit an act of gross misconduct for it to be justified, according to the outlet. It is reprehensible that anyone's religious beliefs could be taken as a ground for misconduct or gross misconduct. Okay. Were I to obey the order of the Board of Management and the order of the court, I would have to accept that sticking to my belief in male and female is wrong. It's not something I will do. It's a violation of my conscience, he said, yada, yada, yada. Justice Michael Quinn ordered Burke be committed to Mountjoy Prison and remain there indefinitely until he purges his contempt or until further order of this court. Burke refused to comply with the court's order after the judge's decision, saying, I cannot purge my contempt by holding my Christian beliefs in contempt. Wilson's Hospital School is a secondary school. Okay. That's the story, people. So look, the headline is not misleading. It's just a headline, and people are going to repeat it. Fire the editor. Minimum underdrive. Like I recognize that I have trouble reading sometimes. That wasn't me. That was. There's a lot of typos in there. I'm not one to pick on typos, but at the very least, it wasn't my reading skills that were at issue there. So that's it. I mean, look, he's not being jailed for misgendering someone. He's now being jailed because in the context of a dismissal with pay, purportedly for misgendering someone, they got a court order telling him to not come onto the school to teach. He did it, said, I'm going to continue doing it. And now he's going to jail for contempt. I did Once Upon a Time, people. See if I can find this. No, I almost got myself out of the stream. Once Upon a Time, I did a contempt video involving a contempt vlog about Tommy Robinson. And I went over some of the amazing cases of contempt that have existed. There was a guy who was jailed for contempt for over a decade. It was an issue where he refused to disclose assets. And I think it was in the context of a divorce. Let me see here. Contempt. Contempt record sentence. 14 years? News. Oh, I'm not going to be able to find it. Contempt sentence, years, jail. Oh, where was it? I won't be able to find it. But there were some very, very bizarre cases of contempt. People went to jail for a long time. There was one guy who went to jail for refusing to abide by a court order enjoining him to give his wife a religious divorce in Judaism, a get. He wouldn't give her the get, so he went to jail. You have to have anger for a spouse to go to jail for refusing to give your spouse a legal religious divorce. There was another one, I think it was concealing assets in the context of a divorce, ultimately let out of jail because the judge came to the conclusion that the jailing was having no effect on the contempt. But contempt is what we call a quasi-criminal proceeding because it can result in fines or imprisonment until the individual complies with the court order. This guy has some beliefs. He has some beliefs that he's willing to violate a court order and go to jail indefinitely in order to support those beliefs.